honor and my privilege to welcome Dr. Kenn Gordon here.
Oh, I want some of that. Holy cow, that was so good. Every Sunday? My notes. Basically, it's the 4 chapters, and the reason I had to write it down is I can never remember them. I've only taught it for 32 years, but somehow or other I just can't bring it into my mind because it's all the same thing. It all runs together. And so I had to write it down, and working on what I was going to talk about today, I've got to tell you, is that I spent most of my time trying to memorize these 4 things so that I wouldn't have to have a piece of paper to let you see it. But, however, that's the way it is. I want to thank William for giving up a spot for me as I kind of cruise through Palm Desert, and they say, "Oh, you're here. Would you like to talk?" And somebody seems to always be prepared to sit down and let me have a few words to say. I don't know why, but I guess they do. So the beginning of the month, you started with the thing itself. And I'm sure I wasn't here then. I caught Reverend Laura, or Dr. Laura and Dr. Joe's talks. But when Dale gave it, I'm sure what she talked about when she talked about the thing itself is she talked about the immensity, the infinitive particle of what we call spirit or God, or as the Muslims say, there's 99 names for God, and one of them is Deb, and one of them is Laura, and one of them is Tony. So take it on for yourself. But the point behind it is that it's infinite. So when I was hearing William give his treatment here this morning, he called and invoked the word truth, capital T, truth. And Dr. Holmes states very, very clearly in the textbook that all true truth, capital T truth, another word for God, all truth goes to the cause, not to the effect. So I'm sure that in the first week, that's what you heard. And the second week was the way that it works, which is it works through the impress of our mind. In other words, there's this infinite intelligence that exists that we are totally connected to, that operates through us, that some people call God, some people call Allah, doesn't matter what you call it, but that it actually operates through a principle of operating through who we are and how it implants itself into the mind to create the form. Last week when Dr. Joe was here, he talked about what it does, and what happens is that, and this is what he said, is that we create a mold, and the ethers of the universe, or spirit itself, fills the mold and delivers unto us everything that we need, everything that is required, everything that is necessary to bring that into fruition. So there's a personal responsibility attached to it. That personal responsibility is how do we build our mold? And as Dr. Tom used to say, we're such crazy meshuganas that what we have is we forget this and we drift away. And when we talk about the truth, what we do, or what I do, and I'll speak totally for myself and won't lay it on you because I'm sure there's somebody here who isn't like me. But what occurs to me is I find it so easy to drift in to the effect as opposed to the cause. And so I sit here and I come here every time I come to Palm Desert because, as Dr. Laura said, this is our home church. This is where we came from. As a matter of fact, I was looking at the things that are coming up, the events that are coming up, and you're having your Valentine's Day reaffirmation of vows that are coming up. How many people are going to be there? Oh, 6 of you. It's going to be packed. I remember that about 1986, probably the first year we were here, Tom did the reaffirmation of vows. And I will tell you, there were couples that spread out from the door all the way through Costa Hall, and we were all standing there waiting with Dr. Tom up here, getting ready to reaffirm our vows. And Deb and I are in the middle of this crowd, and we're standing there, and somebody in the crowd happens to say, "Oh, how long have you been married?" And the first person tells him, and the second person tells him. They go down the line, and they turn up to us who were Deb was in her late 20s, and I was in my 30s, and it turned out we were the longest married couple in the whole lineup. Seriously. It was like, really? Huh. Anyway, I digress. My topic is how to use it. And after 30 some odd years of applying it for myself, and hundreds, if not thousands, of consultations and spiritual consultations I've had with people, I've learned to observe how things happen and how this works. There's an infinite intelligence that is the truth of who we are, that is available to us to the degree that we can accept it, that it works on the imprint of our mind, and that what it does is it creates the form and the expression of our life. So now my job is to tell you how to utilize it, and I've got to start with, we already are. Everything that we think, everything that we do, everything that we believe becomes the manifest expression and experience of our life. That it shows up in it, and that the truth of who we are is this divine, infinite essence of love itself. Divine, infinite essence of love itself. That's the truth of who we are. But we have the power to hold on to this idea and to create trauma and neuroses in our life through the utilization of our own mind and our own power, which creates a lot of hassle or a lot of havoc. And that havoc shows up in our life in different experiences. You know, if the universe is infinite, why we rely on it and say that God is love, or you are love, that the universe is love, is because if it is infinite, it can be nothing else. Because if in any way that it is destructive, destruction would be infinite. And if destruction would be infinite, then none of us would be sitting here right now. There would be no life, there would be no planet, there would be no plane. But we do have the ability to bring within ourselves that concept and that idea of hate, pain, anguish, lack, dis-ease. And when we bring it in and hold it within the confines of our consciousness, what happens is it becomes the reality for us, because the thing itself, this infinite thing, has only one answer, and that is yes. So if you think that you're poor or in lack, it says yes, and brings unto you everything that is required to prove it in your experience. If you think that you're unloved, it says yes, and brings everything required to prove it. If you think that you are abundant, it draws and attracts everything that's required in order to bring the abundance into your life. If you think that you are loving and loved, it draws to you everything that is required. So how you use it is to steadfastly discipline your mind so that what you can do is you can operate on what it is that you want to have in your experience, as opposed to possibly what it is that you do have in your experience. Now, this doesn't mean that all the rest of this stuff doesn't happen. It doesn't mean that it's not real, that it's some surrealistic, imaginative things that you brought in. But what it does mean is that if you created it, you can transform and change it. And by knowing that and by being able to step into it, it empowers you to be able to make the difference. Now, how incredibly simplistic that is to say. And how incredibly simplistic it is to do the first 4 chapters, which really is the blueprint and the diagram of living in spirit and living in life, and think that we can do it in a 20, 25-minute talk. Because it's impossible. But you have classes. Dr. Laura, Dr. Joe, Dr. Dale, Dr. William, Reverend William, they all work on the same principle or the same presence, that they could spend the rest of their life teaching you how to do it. They could spend the rest of your life, if you were willing, trying to do it. And I know I've spent my life trying to do it, and I fail more times than I don't. Seriously. St. Paul said that we should pray without ceasing. And as a child, I thought pray without ceasing must mean that I go into a cubicle somewhere, get on my knees, put my hands together, and pray. And I do that for the rest of my life, which would be very short if that's all I did. It was only when I began to understand this philosophy that I began to understand what was actually being said, which is that every thought I have is a prayer. So when I look upon someone and say, you are so beautiful today, that's a prayer. And if I look upon someone and say, you are not so much today, that too is a prayer. And it is a reflection of what I'm thinking, and it's a reflection of my belief system that draws and attracts everything that's required in order to make it so. My limitation and my abundance. It draws it all and makes it clear. So, when I'm talking to people, what I ask them is what they hold to be true, what they want to have be the truth. And when I do my own work, I sit quietly and I listen to myself and ask myself, what is it that I think about this? If I'm dealing with an issue, let's say around finances, I can easily run around and look at the effect all day long. I can easily show up and see that it doesn't work here, it's not working here, I don't have enough here, I don't have enough there. And so what I need to do is sit down and ask myself, what's in my consciousness around this? What am I holding to be true about this? What am I holding true to be about my bad back? What am I holding true to be about my relationship? What am I holding true to be about my finances? What am I holding true about my creative expression and who I am? And when I see it, if I open myself to it, which is why we get things like moments of silence. This whole service is designed to awaken within us the truth of who we are. And so we see it and we can feel it. And when you can feel it here, means you can feel it elsewhere if you choose to. And you can actually ask yourself some vital questions, which is, what do I feel about this? I used to do You Can Heal Your Life with a reverend here by the name of Olansky. And when I was first a practitioner here, Lowell's job was to mentor me. So I was his mentoree. And so he did these classes, these courses called You Can Heal Your Life from Louise Hay. And one of the remarkable things I found about them was that they worked. And they worked magnificently well. And we would have maybe 40 people on a You Can Heal Your Life class across the way in Costa Hall in those days. And we would give this class. And for 10 weeks, people would come in. And they would come in, and many times there was something physically wrong with them according to their own concepts. And they would enter in, and we would ask them, why are you here? And they'd say, let's say, for example, I have cancer. And they would say, oh. And what do you feel about that cancer? And they would say, well, it's perfect, whole, and complete. I'm divine in the nature of what it is, and I embrace it and know that it's only going to be for my greatest and highest good. Which means they've come to the center for a while, but they don't get the teaching. Tom Costa used to say, I was in this teaching for 20 years before the teaching was in me. They don't get the teaching. The teaching isn't to deny what you feel about it and stuff down what your feelings are, and when you shove them down, what you're doing, you're actually igniting them in your own system. Where you put your energy manifests. Where you put your energy grows. And so it's shoved down and then it's covered over. Sister Elsie Kelly used to say, putting bullshit on the whipped cream. Whipped cream on the bullshit. I'm sorry, I had it backward. And it's okay to say bullshit. It's in the Bible. Okay, so they repress it. And so week 1, they'd say, tell us what it was. Week 2, you'd say, how do you feel about that? And slowly but surely, they would awaken to it because they'd get in touch with what their feelings were. They would go into the den of their own mind, and they would actually say, what do I think about that? How do I feel about that thing? And slowly but surely would awaken them. And so by, let's say, week could say to them. And what do you think about it? And they'd say, you know, I hate it. I absolutely hate it. It restricts my life. It restricts what I can do. It twists me into pretzels. I hate what's happening in my body right now. And that opened the door to be able to bring the healing in. And the healing is this. If you hate what's happening in your life, anyone here hate something that's happening in their life or has ever hated something? More than are going to the reaffirmation. Okay. What happens when you hate it is that hatred grows. Because you live in an infinite universe where your belief system draws and attracts to you to answer your every desire that you think it is to say yes to it. So if you don't think that you're whole, healthy, and complete, it will make it so for you. But slowly but surely what they would do is they would awaken to the realization that they hate it, and then you had something that you could work with. Then you could say, okay, how do we transform and create a new mental equivalent or a new mold to have the ethers pour into it to create something fresh and new for this individual? And then they would be receptive to it. And I will tell you, people left there in remission and healed totally and completely. We can't afford to hate our own being and our own selves. Because what happens when we're doing that is we're creating something in our experience and in our life, and that creation gets the energy and expands and grows and grows and grows and grows. Health, wealth, creative expression, loving relationship demands that we acknowledge it, see what it is, put it behind us. Get thee behind me, Satan, and step into a new way of being, a new way of living, and a new belief system, and put our energy and our power towards something fresh and different and new rather than what we've had before. So how do we do that? How to use it? And how to use it is the first thing we need to realize is we need to realize that what's happening is our responsibility in some way. So we start looking at it. Why don't I have abundance? Why don't I have health? Why don't I have love? Why am I not filled with a sense of purpose in my life? And then when we look at that and we begin to define what it is, we'll actually see what Spirit is saying yes to, and then we begin the process of transforming and changing our mind around it. Now, this demands that you be clear on what you want. Hundreds of people I've counseled. And I've learned as I sit there at my desk and they come in and they sit down, I say, we open with the friendly remarks to get everybody comfortable. You know how it works. And then once everybody's comfortable, you kind of lean across your desk and you say, and what do you want? And here's what they say, 9 times out of 10. Not you, because you guys are different, but here's what they mostly say. They say, I don't want the pain anymore. From your lips to God's ears. Pain, oh, yes. I just need to pay my bills. Can't pay your bills. Yes. Nobody loves me. Nobody cares for me. Yes. So what I would do, because this is how you use it, as I would begin to say, and what do you want? I understand what you've got. You've told me many times what you have. What do you want? And that forces the individual to actually go back to that den of inner being and to look at it and say, what do I want? I would like to be prosperous. I would like to have enough flow in my life, monetary flow in my life, to be able to support me in all the things that I want to do. I would like to be filled with energy so that I'm not so tired and I'm always awake and alert and I'm ready to go and I'm ready to move and that I have the flexibility to do so. You get the point, the picture? So I ask you a question, what do you want? don't really expect an answer, but I'll give you a moment to think about it. What's your issue? What's going on within you right now? What's bothering you or irritating you? And instead of having that, what would you like to replace it with? How to use it. This is how you use it. You own what's going on in your life. You don't make it into an effect. You realize that the cause behind it is your own belief system, and that you can transform it through the utilization of implanting a new idea into your mind. And once you have a clear picture of what you want, you begin the tedious, sometimes, exercise of walking through it and recognizing it. I was a farmer. I remember one guy phoning me one day and saying, "Oh, it must be horrible to be a farmer in this day and age. You got to work so hard and make no money." I lapped that up like a puppy dog. Oh, God, oh. You have no idea. I was waiting to hear it, waiting for them to feed something, waiting for the earth, for the planet, for the souls on the planet to feed back to me how right I was in my situation. I find this teaching and I realize that that's not working, that's not effective. So I begin to do treatment work around prosperity. And I remember my mailbox was across from my farm. And I would pray for money. And I expected some checks to come in, so I kind of was hedging my bet. But the checks didn't come, they didn't come, they didn't come, they didn't come, they didn't come. And all the time there were other people wanting checks that weren't coming. And I remember going to the mailbox one day, and I walked across the street, and I was so used to going across, and I'd open the mailbox, and I'd bring in the mail, and Deborah, my first wife, was there, and she'd say, "Did you get it?" I'd say, "No, just more bills, just more bills." She'd say, "Oh." Next day I'd go over, same thing. Finally, one day I went over, and here's what happened. I'd been listening to Tom Costa, and I went over and I got my mail, and I was going through it, and I was cursing it, You know what? You don't really curse it, but you do in your mind. Pray without ceasing. Rats. Horrible. Don't want to see that. And then this envelope was there, and it was a card from somebody. And it had a stamp on it, and the stamp hadn't been canceled. When they used to go through and cancel it? And there was like 35 cents on this envelope waiting there that hadn't had a piece of ink put on it. And I'm looking at it, on the other side of the road in the dusty thermal, and I'm looking at it thinking, empower the demonstration of what you're looking for. Don't throw it away. Don't discard it thinking, it's nothing. Don't belittle it. And I walked across the street, and I walked inside the house, and Deb said, well, did you get your checks? Is there anything there? And I said, yeah, look, I got 35 cents. Look at this. And I tried to do it with as much sweetness and energy and empowerment as I could. That's the feeling that I want to have in my life. Financially, I want to be joyful about what comes into my life. Why do I let a couple of cruddy bills stand between me and the joy? It's only effect. It's created by my own belief system. You too can do greater works if but you believe in God, in Tony, in William. If you believe in yourself. Oh my God, there it is. Hallelujah. That was the opening of flow in my life. I probably could go through and dictate how it worked from there. How 35-cent unstamped stamp began to create a river that flowed into my life, that brought things into my being. How to use it? You empower it. You do your work. You find out what your block is. You do your treatment work or your mental work to have that block become apparent for you. Once you see it, what you do is you determine what it is that you want in your life. And once you've determined that, you set your focus on what you want, and you put as much energy towards that, if not more, than you do towards this. Now, I'll tell you a little secret. When I say as much energy, it's something you probably discovered yourself. Do you find it easier to rage and hate or to love? It moves. That's the right answer. But don't you find that there's very few times when I watch the news and the love goes, ting, oh God, I love this. There's very few times that occurs. But boy, when I watch that news and it goes, ting, I can go, oh, and go to that place. Maybe I'm the only one who's ever been in that place. Or driving. Or he or she who is no longer with us. Or the political situation. Or the bank balance. Or. It's amazing how quick that can happen, but here's the key and the secret to it. Spiritual practice is more powerful than what's happening to you automatically and habitually. So when you actually have a dedicated time to use this, a time where you sit and you say, what do I believe about that? And allow it to cast back. A time like the beautiful song where you release the past, which is only history, and you refuse to be intimidated by the future, which really isn't happening yet. And you allow yourself into the moment, the present moment, where all the power of the universe resides. And at that particular point, and I don't care how you do it, we could teach meditation, we could do all kinds of ways and means. You can do it anywhere, anytime, any place. But to allow yourself to be able to be in that spot, it's 1,000-fold what happened to you watching news last night. That's how it works. The power of intention and concentrated thought is 1,000 times more powerful than the feeling you had when you tripped or when that happened to you. And so when I say put more energy towards the things you want as opposed to the things that you've got that you don't want to have anymore, that is where you put your focus. This is how you use it. This is how you transform and change your mind. Suddenly what happens, and it might not happen overnight, suddenly what occurs is you find yourself in a situation where things start to flow. And then it becomes the expectation. Because you know what you have in your life right now? What you expect. Change your expectation. And when you change your expectation, you draw and attract the rest in. How am I doing on time? Okay, I'd like to close with a meditative prayer treatment. Is that okay? Is anybody okay with that? Okay. I don't know whether I wouldn't have done it if you'd said no anyway. Okay. So I just ask you for a second, and this will be brief, but I want you to realize that you could extend this out in the use of this power within you for your own purposes. So the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to breathe. And on your next breath, what I want you to do is bring yourself present by releasing and surrendering your past. Once again, easy to say. But to the best of your ability, just simply allow what happened 20 minutes ago, an hour ago, a week ago, a month ago, 20 years ago. Allow that to be put on the shelf behind you. And now what I would have you do is breathe. And on your next breath, what I want you to do is I want you to step away from any anxiety you have about the future. Allow yourself to release who you're going to go for lunch with or what's going to happen tomorrow or next week. It's totally unknown. Only your imagination keeps it alive. And I want you to breathe. So now you're in the present moment. It isn't tainted by your past experiences or by the anxiety you might have about the future. You are the truth of the infinity of life within you right here and right now. So on your next breath, what I would have you do is formulate in your mind what it is that you want. To the best of your ability, see it clearly. And understand that it is more of a feeling than a thing. And breathe into that. And here's what I know to be true. I believe in God and absolutely nothing else. I recognize and know that I'm unified with this power, as is all things that I'm in touch with, for I'm unified with life itself. Accepting and expecting that this is my truth and that this is so, I right here and right now speak my word, knowing that that vision that has been put forward of what it is you desire in your life is already whole, complete, and already in existence. I recognize and know that you couldn't even imagine what it would be if you didn't already see it and know it in some way. Therefore, I know that this is what it is that you choose, that from this moment forward, all things and everything that you concentrate your thought on is put in the direction of that which you choose, filled with light, filled with love, filled with joy, filled with beauty. I recognize and know that that higher power that is the truth of who you are, right here and right now, dissolves and dissipates anything unlike it. And that if it shows up, you simply discard it and put it behind you. And allow yourself instead to rely upon the focus of the truth of your being, the truth of your life, the truth of spirit. And accepting and embracing this as your truth, I know that that same higher power delivers back to you, delivers unto you everything that is required and everything that is necessary to draw and attract it into your being and into your expression and into your experience. Accepting this as the truth, I give thanks that it's so. I give thanks that this is the reality of life that lays before us. And I surrender it back into that infinite intelligence, that infinite mind, which is your mind, my mind, and all mind. And I demand that it be your experience and my experience. I let go and I let spirit take its course. And so it is. God bless you. Thank you so much.